Hi friends, welcome back to Rouse Rising. If you're new to this channel, I am Katie, and on this channel I share with you all about holistic homemaking, lifestyle, and parenting. If you're into all that, click the subscribe button. I would love to have you part of the Rouse Rising family. In today's video, I am sharing with you a whole lot of stuff, but my primary thing is what to get an 11-year-old for his birthday. We're also doing a sourdough birthday cake. We're gonna make some sourdough bread, lots of meal prepping, and just kind of what our family's been up to so far this spring. And I have a grocery haul for you in this video. If you are new here, a little bit about me. I am a mom to 5 kids. We recently started homeschooling again, and I love to cook meals from scratch in my kitchen. We live in the Pacific Northwest, but it's not where you think. We live in a high desert area. We're 4,000 feet above sea level. So last week we had snow. This week we have 100-degree weather. And yeah, that sums up life around here on Rouse Rising. A few of you have asked, Katie, where you been? Where's your videos? We've missed you. I've missed you guys too so much. Springtime, right? It's just crazy busy for everybody all over the world. When spring hits, we're ready to get out of the house. We've had cabin fever all winter. We have 4 kids in soccer. We've got lots going on, a lot going on. So I'm gonna share a little bit of that with you in this video, and hopefully I can get back on a more rigid schedule once we kind of get past this initial spring fever. That's what I'm gonna call it, spring fever. So thank you for joining me today. Let's get into this video. Let's make some sourdough leaven to make 4 loaves of sourdough bread. So to make leaven, I am doubling this recipe. So I'm gonna go ahead and give you the double measurements. I am doing 150 grams of sourdough starter, 150 grams of water, and 150 grams of flour. We're gonna give this a good mix, and I'm actually mixing this up the previous night before I go to bed, and I'm using a Dutch dough whisk that helps incorporate lots of air into this leaven so that the little sourdough microbes can do their job and ferment this wheat. So I cover it up and I set it back on the warm spot on my counter. This is above my dishwasher, and I am going to feed my sourdough starter. So to feed my sourdough starter, I do equal parts starter that is already in my container, and I'm just guessing what that is, and then I do equal parts flour and water. That way my starter is the right consistency. I want it thicker than a pancake batter, and then as it ferments, it is going to become more loose or more liquidy. So you'll see in the morning that it's going to have lots of bubbles. It's a really active starter. This starter has been sitting in my refrigerator for a few months, and I actually took a week to feed it and discard and feed and discard to get it live and active again. Okay, so we see right now this is to the 1 cup line, or 8 ounces. That's that, and then this is about to right there. So I've got it marked right there from the last time. I usually feed it, it's usually around the same place. By the morning time, this sourdough starter will have doubled, and it will be very bubbly and very active. And the same with this leaven. It should have doubled by morning time. All right, this is my leaven for my 4 loaves of sourdough bread. It started out right here, and it has more than doubled. I'm gonna show you the water test and how we determine the water float test. So what you do is you take a spoonful of this, you drop it in a bowl or a cup of water, and if it floats, then you know that it's good. But what I typically do is I'm just gonna add the water that I need for my bread recipe to this bowl. My leaven will float in that water. If you're new, it's good to do the float test, but if you're, if you're well versed in sourdough, you don't need to do the float test typically if you know your leaven is good. So over here I have my starter, and my starter was right below this line once it all evened out. So it has doubled as well. It's nice and happy. It is super bubbly. Look at all those amazing bubbles. So What I typically do now that my starter is revitalized and it's good to go is I will put the lid on this morning and throw this right back in the refrigerator until I plan to use it again. And I don't plan on using it for about another week or so. So I'm just making my kids 4 loaves of sourdough bread. 2 will go into the freezer. I'll pre-slice them and freeze them. And then I'll make some more bread next week when we get back in town, but we're planning to go out of town. You can see this nice and bubbly leaven. So I'm gonna go ahead and add my water to this, and we're gonna be adding, so I'm doubling my recipe. My recipe for sourdough makes 2 loaves. I'll write the recipe down below in this video's description. But for doubling it, I am gonna do 950 grams of water. And you just saw a little bubble pop there. So yeah, you can see, yep, nice and alive and bubbly, lots of gas in there. So this is ready to go. So what I do is I just tear my scale to get it down to 0, and then we're gonna add 950 grams of water, and this is lukewarm water. You can see my starter, or my leaven rather, is floating all the way to the top. 950 grams of water, this is all floating, so that's good to go. And then what I would typically do is mix that in there, but I'll probably just pour it into my mixer and use a spatula to get it all cleaned out. The next thing I'm gonna do is measure my flour. So I always measure my flour directly into the vessel that I plan to use. So I have tared my plate and my mixer, and I'm gonna add 1,400 grams of flour to my mixing bowl. Okay, the next thing I'm going to do is mix up my leaven.
What are you making, Mom?
Making sourdough bread, baby. So I just make sure that my leaven is off the sides of the bowl. There we go, it's clicked into place. I am going to put the kneading bread hook on top. There we go. I'm going to put my lid on, my dust cover lid. And I'm going to close it up. Yeah, you want an apple?
Yeah.
Next, I am just going to turn this on. Get everything mixed in. I'm going to turn this into a shaggy dough. We're going to let this rest, and I'm going to make my warm salted water. So what I did was I just turned this on to 1 and allowed it to mix to a shaggy dough. You can see in here. So I'm not actually kneading it yet. I'm not going to create the gluten formation yet. We're going to let this rest for a little bit, and I'm going to add my salted water, and at that point we are going to allow this to knead. So set my timer for 30 minutes and let that rest. So I start out with 100 grams of warm water. Now, if you were going to be making if you were going to be making my base, 2 loaves of bread, the base recipe, you would use 50 grams of water. So here we've got 100. There we go. 100. You can measure out a tablespoon of salt, and that's either going to be, it's supposed to be about 20 grams. So usually I just measure 40 grams of salt, but a little bit extra salt's not going to hurt us. So it's usually 2 tablespoons or 40 grams of salt. So we're just going to mix this and allow it to sit and dissolve, and this is going to be our salty water that we are going to add in about 30 minutes to my NutriMill mixer with my dough in it. This NutriMill mixer has a 6 pounds of dough capacity. That means that I could make 4 of my sourdough bread recipes. That means 8 loaves of sourdough in this mixer. I could make 8 loaves of sourdough at once. Right now we're at half capacity. I'm making 4 loaves of sourdough. That's all I'm gonna do today. I'm just experimenting with it, but maybe next time I will try to max it out and make 8 loaves. You can see I have plenty of room in here now just with these 4 loaves of sourdough, so I can definitely double this recipe or quadruple my base recipe that's linked down below in this video's description. to make 8 loaves total. But for today's purposes, we're just doubling our recipe and making 4 loaves. So I'm gonna add this salt water to my dough now, and this has been in the auto lathe. This dough has been resting and absorbing all the water, allowing the flour to expand and all of that good stuff. So we're just gonna go ahead and dump in our salted water, trying to get all that Redmond's real salt that we can in there. I'm gonna close it, and I'm just gonna pulse it a few times to kind of get it going. But really, if you watch my other sourdough videos, I squish this in with my hands. I've time-lapsed this video, that's why it's crazy fast, but really I'm just using the #1 setting on my NutriMill Artiste mixer to get this going. Because I'm learning all the nuances of this mixer, and because I don't want a crust forming around the top part, I'm going to be using my spatula this one time to scrape this down, just to make sure that we're getting all the salt and all the moisture into the dough. Normally what I would do is I would allow this to sit and rest for a half hour, but I've seen a lot of people just continue to mix the dough and to create the gluten in it. So I'm going to continue mixing it, and this is a big experiment. We're going to see how this works. Normally I would do a stretch and fold with my dough by hand, but I want to eliminate using my hands and I just want to use the mixer. So I'm going to put this on 1 and continue to let it mix for the next 10 minutes or so. I start my sourdough first thing in the morning when I wake up, so it's also breakfast time. So while my sourdough sits and rests between my mixing, so I let it rest for about 30 minutes and then I'm going to give it another mix. I'm going to go ahead and make breakfast for my family this morning. We are going to have French toast. So I mix up some eggs, I add some milk, and I use the Ceylon cinnamon to flavor it, to spice it up. I forgot to add salt. Typically, I sprinkle in some Redmond's real salt into my French toast egg mix, but I did not do that on this day, and that's okay. My bread has salt in it already. So we're just gonna slice up this daily loaf of bread. This recipe is on my channel. It's my standard loaf of bread, and I use this for all sorts of recipes. It's my family's favorite daily loaf of bread, and as you can see, it makes a perfect slice. It's really good for French toast on the 2nd or 3rd day after it was baked. So the first day that I bake it, we'll use it for sandwiches or whatever, and then the 2nd or 3rd day, depending on what's going on in life, we will slice up the rest of it and use it for French toast or for an egg casserole, an egg bake, that sort of thing. So my husband and I actually don't eat bread. I'm gluten-free and he doesn't partake in the gluten either. However, our kids still do. So they are the lucky ones that get to enjoy this delicious bread. And then he and I will have meat, eggs, and fruit, that sort of thing for breakfast. I'll share with you later on in this video typically what my breakfast looks like on any given day. But for now, I'm just gonna fry up some French toast and feed the kids. Currently, Aaron is sitting at the breakfast table or at our meal table with the kids, and they're knocking out some homeschool on this morning. I kind of got them started, and then he's working with them a little bit while I make the sourdough bread, while I make some French toast and get breakfast going, and then they'll have breakfast, then resume homeschool. So that's been our routine since we started homeschooling about 3-4 weeks ago. It's worked out really well for our family. My favorite cooking tool of all is this cast iron skillet, and in this cast iron skillet I have got some coconut oil frying up this French toast. You can use butter or lard, bacon grease, whatever you have to fry your French toast. I have allowed the NutriMill to mix up the dough, and then I'm going to transfer it to another bowl where I'm going to do a round or two of stretch and folds. And once I'm happy with the consistency of my bread and I feel like it is airy and has doubled in size, that's why I like to use this glass bowl. I mean, you can do it all in your NutriMill, but I'm not used to it yet. I'm used to my old-fashioned way, so I put it in this glass bowl to do the last couple stretch and folds, and then we turn this out on the table, and we're going to divide it up into 4 equal parts. So if I were to measure this out into the equal parts, it would equal about 710 grams to 715 grams of dough per loaf. But nowadays I eyeball it and just kind of go based off sizes of the chunks of dough, and it usually works out within 20 to 30 grams of each loaf, which is fine with me. If I were to be selling this bread to my community like I used to do, I would be using my scale to measure out the exact amount, about 710 grams each. The tool I'm using to divide this is a bench knife or a bench scraper. What do you call it? Let me know down in the comments below. And so I use that to divide it, and I also use it to create tension in my dough. I'm going to show you how I use this bench knife to create tension first, and then I'm going to show you how you can do it with your hands if you don't have one of these tools, which is fine. So to create tension in our loaf, what I'm going to do is just slide the bread in one direction and then slide it in the other direction, creating tension. So that is going to make a nice, neat bowl of dough. So here we are going to do it with my hands, and I just pull it towards me. And as I do that, the dough rolls underneath of itself, and I rotate it, and it continues to roll underneath of itself, creating tension, which is important to have a properly shaped loaf of bread. If I were just to leave it kind of floppy like that, it may not hold its shape quite as well. So once I have done this, I'm going to allow the dough to rest for 30 minutes. You can set a timer. I just kind of wing it and come back to it when I get a chance, because, you know, mom life, you get kind of occupied with things. And sourdough is rather forgiving as long as your house isn't really hot. So once I create the tension, I'm going to just let these sit and rest with a damp towel on top of them. And I like to use these flour sack towels that I get from Walmart. I just dampen it and wring it out and then cover the bread so that it doesn't dry out. People use various methods to do that, and this is just my preferred method. So now what we're going to do is stretch and fold it 4 times and then create tension with the loaf again. So that's just to get the shape going. Then I dust it with some flour and I place it into a fabric lined banneton. Some folks use a colander. I got these baskets from a restaurant supply store, and I also have the wooden bannetons to the right underneath the fabric. Tonight's dinner is going to be this deer stew, some deer stew that I made a couple years ago. Should be tasty. You saw a minute ago that I placed the bannetons into a plastic bag, and then I refrigerate them overnight. But on this particular loaf right here, I just let it sit out on the counter for a few hours because I wanted to use it as part of our dinner. So I let it sit out on the counter for a few hours. The rest of the loaves went into the refrigerator for an overnight long ferment. But if you're not going to do the long ferment, then it needs to sit out for about 3 hours so that it can continue to ferment, and then you can throw it in a 500-degree preheated oven. So it cooks for 15 minutes in a covered Dutch oven for 15 minutes at 500 degrees. Then I turn the heat down to 425 and I let it cook for another 10 to 15 minutes. Then I take the lid off and let it cook for about 10 minutes at 425 degrees just to finish the loaf off. Then I take it out and place it on a wire cooling rack so that it can cool off a bit before I slice into it. So you can see this has kind of a jack-o'-lantern look to it with the big smiley face, but it has a nice oven spring, a nice rise, and it looks beautiful. It turned out great. We're going to slice it up here in just a minute, but I'm going to go ahead and throw another loaf of sourdough. This is a loaf that I made into a longer shaped loaf, and I put it into my long wooden banneton, and it also sat out on the counter for a few hours. What I'm doing here is scoring the bread, and that just allows the bread a point to expand. If I didn't score the bread, it wouldn't rise as fully. It wouldn't have that beautiful oven spring. It would kind of be held up and retarded a little bit by not scoring it. So you score it to give it a place so it can expand without tearing the bread ununiformly. So that's why you see I have the long slash down the middle, and then I'm just playing around with different designs. I'm not the best scorer in the world. I don't make the most beautiful designs. I always do something different just to kind of play around. But you can look up ways to score sourdough bread, and there's all sorts of artistic ways to do it. I used to be more artsy with my scores, but lately I'm just getting it done, you know? So I also like to press out the larger pockets of air in my dough so that I don't get huge gaping holes. The reason why I do this is because I don't like it when the butter and jelly and jams fall through and make a huge mess on my kids. So I prefer a crumb that has less big holes. I did not press out this dough, so you see it does have some larger holes in the crumb of the dough. So I'm just buttering this up for the kiddos. And this week turned out to be a perfect week to bake sourdough bread because the first week of May, we got dumped on with some snow. It was beautiful and a great time to make warming meals. Today, we're gonna be putting pork broth into our rice. I already have a little bit of water in there from rinsing it. I rinsed it like 3 or 4 times, and then I left probably, I don't know, half a cup, maybe a cup of rice or water in there. And we're just gonna add this.
There's an emergency. Come on. We gotta go. Come on. We need to go. No. Booty, it's an emergency. Get on. No.
Okay, then we put our lid on. Close the vent. I need to plug it in. I always unplug my appliances that I'm not using. I don't like to leave them plugged in. The only one I leave plugged in is my coffee maker. Hit the rice button, and in about 15 minutes we'll have cooked rice. The next morning, we're gonna cook up some waffles, and I'm gonna make as many waffles as I can fit into this Pyrex large measuring cup. So I'm gonna go ahead and put 4 eggs in here to start. If I had some forethought, I would have fermented my flour overnight with my sourdough starter and then made my waffles, but I didn't do that. I'm also going to be using some fresh raw milk because we just ran out of our store-bought milk, and yesterday was milk pickup day, so that's why you see me using milk in a glass jar. I often get asked, hey, is raw milk dangerous? And I encourage you to do your research about that. If you know your source and you know your farmer, it's not that dangerous. So we also put in about 2 teaspoons of vanilla, about 3/4 a cup of sugar. We also did a teaspoon of salt, and then I'm doing about a cup of coconut oil and butter mixed. Then I'm just gonna kind of add flour into this as necessary. Let's see, I'm running out of all-purpose flour in this, so I'm going to start out with 2 cups of all-purpose flour, and then I'm going to be adding some whole wheat bread flour after I get this bit mixed in. I also am adding 6 teaspoons of baking soda, or this is baking powder actually. We're going to mix it all up. It's going to be too wet, so I'm actually going to add the bread flour in just a minute. Keep on mixing, and then we're gonna throw this on our ceramic coated waffle iron you see back there that is preheating. And goodness, how many waffles this made? Between 10 and 12 waffles. Each one of my kids ate a waffle, and then I put the rest of the waffles on a wire rack to cool, and then I put them in a Ziploc bag, sucked all the air out of the Ziploc bag, and then popped them in the freezer so that we could have an easy breakfast on another day. So today we are going to cook up these waffles, and we're going to top them with some elderberry syrup that was actually some failed elderberry jelly that turned into syrup. And I know Casey from Boots and Bounty Homestead said that I could add some quick pectin to my jars of failed elderberry jelly and it would firm up the jelly, but I don't have any quick pectin. I guess I could find some on the internet, but that's something I'm going to do in the future. So in the meantime, we're just using that failed elderberry jelly to make syrup on our waffles and pancakes. Next up, you guys see me make this a lot on my channel if you've been here for a while, but we're gonna do some Mississippi pot roast, and I'm gonna use a combination of some local grass-fed beef that I pick up from a farm store where we do our Azure drop pickup, and I'm also throwing in a couple of elk steaks that I had thawing out in the refrigerator. You saw that beef was kind of frozen and the elk steaks were not, and I decided to add another pound. So I've got about 3 pounds of red meat going into my Instant Pot. I'm using a packet of bone broth. I'm also using some pork broth. We're gonna throw in some pats of butter in here, and then I also have been sprinkling in some buttermilk ranch powder. So that's what you see right there. I buy that buttermilk ranch powder in bulk from Azure, and then we're gonna put some of those pepperoncini peppers and some of the juice from the jar, and I'm gonna slow cook this for about 6 hours. All right, got a quick little grocery haul for you. We need to buy produce weekly, and then we make bread from scratch, all that kind of good stuff. So I'm going to show you everything I got here, starting out with this soothing caramel bedtime tea. I drink some of that every night. It's so good. I love bok choy, and you guys saw in my one of my recent videos that I've been growing bok choy in a hydroponic system, but I eat a lot more of it than I can grow. So bought a bunch of that, and there's some over there because I need to eat breakfast. It is 1 o'clock and I still haven't eaten anything today, so I need to eat soon. Here's a tomato, a bag of Pink Lady apples. These were $5.99 for, what is this, 3 pounds, 2 pounds. 2 pounds of apples was $5.99. The Honeycrisp that Aaron likes to get were $7 for a bag, 2-pound bag of apples. I think that is just insane. I know that they're not in season right now because it's not fall, but apples should never cost $5 for 2 pounds. Like, that's insane. That's crazy to me. We got some lettuce to go with the tomato because tomorrow we're going on a field trip with the kids, a homeschool co-op field trip, and we need some packed lunches for that. I also got 2 things of mayonnaise to make them turkey sandwiches. I got turkey from Costco the last time we did our Costco haul. So I've got turkey to make turkey sandwiches. I need to throw some bread in the bread machine after this grocery haul so that I can have bread for tomorrow, because we are all out. Actually, we're not all out. We have sourdough bread, but that bread's a little bit too hard to make sandwiches. This batch of sourdough that I made, I just started making sourdough again, and yeah, it wasn't the best batch, so need to make some sandwich bread. I've got a honeydew and a cantaloupe. Back here we've got 2 vanilla yogurts, 2 sour creams. Aaron uses the sour cream every day. He eats carnivore based, so he eats mostly animal products. And he goes through a lot of sour cream. So here we have, bless me. Here we have 2 things of milk. We do get raw milk from a local farmer, but we only get 1 gallon a week right now because Hagen wasn't drinking milk for about 2 months, and she's our big milk drinker. And so we've only been getting a gallon, and since she started drinking milk again, and I used some in my waffles this morning, we burned through our gallon of milk pretty quickly. So I got another gallon of whole milk to get us through. We're also going out of town, so I'm gonna miss our milk delivery day this week. So this is just to get us through the rest of the week, and when we come back in town next week, 2 big bags, 3-pound bags of cuties, mandarins. We go through those like crazy. The kids will eat 3-4 at a time each. And then 4 organic cucumbers. I have some eggs from my neighbor. I just wanted to make sure we had enough eggs to get through the week. And then down here, we needed to get some more inflation needles for the kids' soccer balls, basketballs, all their balls. So we got a pack of those. I need to clean my dishwasher. If you guys have any recommendations for how to clean your dishwasher, I went ahead and grabbed one of these. This is like $4 for one of these, but our dishwasher is just covered in hard water. So got that. We needed some more toilet bowl cleaner. This is what I use in the toilet bowl. I know, toxic bleach, but we have hard water, and we get a hard water ring stain around our toilet if I'm not scrubbing it every day. And some days I forget, and eventually a ring builds up, like a thin line of calcium. So I got some Lime Away to remove that. And then the kids' bathroom sink, for some reason, frequently gets clogged up. I think they're just like spitting hunks of toothpaste down there. I'm not sure what's going on in there. They might have shoved some Legos down there. I have no idea. So I got some Drano Max gel, a big bulk size of that, to clean out their drain pipe. I also was looking for lime. just straight up lye to clean my cast iron skillets. I'm going to take you guys through a video to do that, but they didn't have any lye there today. We also got 4 boxes of bubbly, but all of these are out in the garage. These are what Aaron drinks. He likes to drink these in the summertime, so we stay stocked up on them. We got 2 pomegranate, no, what kind does he get? Cranberry? What kind does Dad like?
I think he likes blueberries and cherries.
So we got 2 cherries bubblies and 2 orange cream bubblies, 2 8-packs. So that also is factored into our total. Okay, for this stuff, and obviously those items were a little bit more expensive. This was $120.74. That seems outrageous to me for the little bit of stuff that I got. $120 of food and household products right there. Oh my goodness, grocery prices are insane. All right, this is our Mississippi pot roast, and we're gonna serve it on hoagie buns that I picked up from the grocery store. And y'all know what? I just realized I didn't show you these in my grocery haul because I set them aside. I set them over here beside this and completely forgot about them, just like I forgot about the bubblies that were in my grocery haul. So we're just gonna serve this up. Normally I would have made bread, but oh shoot, I need to bake bread right now, Hagen. I need to bake bread for tomorrow's sandwiches, so I'm going to do that right now real quick. And we are going to serve this up on a bun, and it's going to be delicious. So this is what the stew meat was, and it just fell apart. I did those 2 elk steaks in here too. So the elk steaks are mixed with some of this beef, and it is going to be delicious. We're also going to have some cucumber pickles and some raw carrots. So I got to get those going too, but just showing you guys the main dinner. We had a homeschool field trip to a local dairy farm. It was really, really fun to see all the cows and the baby cows, and we got to pet the baby cows. We had a good time, and the kids got to learn a little bit about how milk is manufactured on a large scale. And then Aaron took Bodhi golfing with him while we were at the field trip.
Nice putt, Bodhi. All right, Knuckles. Good job, brother. Hey, nice par. Can you get in the cart for Daddy? Look at me real quick and smile. Can you say hi, guys?
Hi, guys.
Say miss you. Come here. Look.
Miss you.
Say just playing golf with Daddy.
Golf with Daddy.
All right, say love you.
Love you.
Bye.
Bye. No way.
Colored pencils. Colored books.
So there's a colored pencil set for each one of you big kids. And then Annika, reach down in there. And what did you and Bodhi get? Turn around, let me see.
Pencils. Pencils.
Yeah, you and Bodhi got coloring pencils your own set, didn't you? What do you say? These are all from Carol.
What?
Yeah.
Thank you, Carol.
Thank you, Carol. Thank you, Sarah.
Yeah, and then she got you some memory verse coloring books, I think.
You did?
Yeah, these are these are little books that you guys can use your colored pencils with.
That's so cool. Thank you, Carol.
I'm just gonna rip this open.
You're so
Okay.
kind.
Yeah, you can rip that open because then you each have your own container, your own tin box to keep your colored pencils in. So what we'll do is write your names on them so that you guys can each keep your individual box of colored pencils.
Oh, that shows you. I am not that on this shape. I'm that on with it now.
What trip?
Annika, Carol said that she sent you and Bodhi coloring books, and they'll be in the mail next week. So until then, you can just color in some of the things that you have.
Make a pop.
Yeah, poppies.
I want the poppies. They use
Sharpen it. You want to sharpen it? So I typically cut our kids' hair, or boys' hair, but the boys' hair had gotten so long and unruly that I really wanted to take them to a barber shop and get them nice, sharp, clean haircuts because they had been letting it grow for the last 2 months and it was just out of control. So here's the after pic of both boys. From here, I'll be able to maintain their haircuts for a couple of months, and then I'll end up taking them back if it gets too unruly for the barber to do a nice clean job. And then many of you may or may not know, my husband is in the Air Force and I can always appreciate a good jet flyover. We also made it to the park on this particular day after the boys' haircut, so that was really fun for the kids. Next up, we are going to start the leaven for our chocolate sourdough birthday cake, and for that I am adding 2 cups of all-purpose flour to my glass dish, and then we are going to add about a cup of sourdough starter to this, and this is going to sit out on the counter for 3 hours before I make the cake, and that just gives it time for the flour to be fermented nicely with the sourdough starter. We're also going to be adding about 16 ounces or a cup of milk. You can use fresh milk. I am going to be using this canned carnation milk that we've had in our cabinets for a while, and I need to start cycling through this, so I'm going to be using this to make a really delicious chocolate sourdough cake for our oldest son's birthday. He is turning 11 and he loves this chocolate sourdough cake. So I'm going to leave this whole recipe linked down below in this video's description so you can check out the cake we made last year for him. It was a chocolate dirt cake, and it was a lot of fun because I homemade chocolate wafers that we crumbled up and used as a dirt topping to decorate the cake. But this year, because we have a lot going on this particular week, we're just going to make a basic birthday cake, which everybody loved. Of course, I'm not able to eat this cake, but the family really enjoys it, so it's one that we make for many birthdays. I'm just giving this a mix with my dough. My dough whisk is what this is called, and I will leave this dough whisk linked down below in this video's description in case you need something like this to mix up your thicker bread doughs. So you can use this for mixing up pancakes or anything like that. It works a lot better with a thick dough than a typical whisk does. That's why you see me often reaching for this when I'm making my doughs. So we're going to cover this up and let it sit out on the counter for 3 hours. This is the first medicinal plant that I harvest every spring. This is called mullein. When you forage it early in the season, the leaves are nice and tender, and you can see they're kind of fuzzy, but now I have them all wet. But they're nice and fuzzy little plants, and the leaves are really tender. And these leaves early in spring are perfect for making your teas, for making mullein tea. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to wash all of these, and then I'm going to throw these in my freeze dryer. You can dehydrate them on a screen in the sun or in a very ventilated place just so that they completely dry out. You can also dry them in a dehydrator if you want to. But I'm going to freeze dry these and crush it up to use as tea. And my family uses this tea as a respiratory soothing tea. So if you have any kind of respiratory ear, nose, and throat ails, this will help move mucus out of your lungs. It helps the cilia in your lungs work to move out all the mucus, the congestion, whatever is going on in your ear, nose, and throat, especially your lungs. This is great for treating coughs. So I often make a tincture with this, and I will make a tincture or an elixir with brandy, honey, and mullein, and I will let it steep for 6 weeks or so, and then I strain out all the solids, and then I have a very effective cough syrup. And so that is what we typically use in the winter months when my family gets sick with any kind of cough or respiratory ailment. If we drink a mullein tea in the morning and at night before bed, when we drink the tea in the morning, our cough subsides for the day. And then we drink another potent cup of tea or infusion at night. And my kids will not cough at night. So mullein has been and is very effective for treating coughs. You can also infuse it with garlic and olive oil to make a garlic mullein ear oil to help treat ear infections if you or a loved one is prone to that. Mullein is also great to mix with elderberry when you feel the flu coming on. It's mostly used for respiratory ailments. Now, if you look up mullein and its medicinal uses, you're going to find a variety of things, but I have found it most effective in my family for coughs, and that's what we typically use it for around here. So I stock up on it in spring, and I dry a bunch of it out, and I have hundreds of plants in my yard because I let it go to flower, and then I pick the flowers, and I use the flowers in other types of infusions, and the flowers are quite lovely for treating ailments as well. But the leaves in the early spring are best for tea because they have a mild flavor and they're just really nice in a tea. So you can mix it with other herbs, cinnamon, things like that, other spices, which make it really nice and flavorful. I prefer spiced teas myself. So that's typically the types of things that I infuse it with will be cinnamons and ginger and things like that. Kind of like, it makes a nice tea. So you can also add this with your star anise in your tea. And star anise is a great throat soother, cough soothing spice. So mullein and star anise go together really well. So I would encourage you to look up the herbs, especially mullein, and go out in your yard or out in nature. It grows in many places where the soil has recently been disturbed. It grows on roadsides. However, I don't harvest it from the roadside. I harvest it from my yard. So a lot of places you can find mullein growing in the wild. And it's just a really good plant. Now, first year plants are the ones that stay low to the ground in those little clusters. And second year plants grow the tall yellow stalks. Sometimes they have purple flowers, but more often than not, it is a yellow stalked flower with flowers that bloom all the way down the stalk. And you can grab those little delicate flowers off of there and dry those and save those for different teas and infusions. But like I said, this time of year, you want to harvest the leaves for your tea because they're very mild. You don't want to wait too late in the year. And also you want to get the leaves that are more towards the middle of the cluster. They tend to have less dirt and the best flavor for your teas and infusions. So I hope you guys find this helpful. Go out and harvest your mullein and get it all dried up for next year's cold and flu season. So now I have all of the mullein just draining right here. The next thing I'm gonna do is put it in my salad spinner, spin off all the extra water, and then I'm gonna lay it on the trays in my freeze dryer and get it all freeze dried. Hagen is gonna be helping to bake this cake because she is working on units or measurement units in math. So she's going to be my helper today while we go over some measurements to make this chocolate cake. This is half of a cup. This is 3/4 of a cup of cocoa. So kind of spread that around in there.
Put it all in one spot.
It's totally okay. One of those. You want it to be flat so that it's not too much. A little less than that, so like that much, and then spread that around in there. And we're gonna do half. All right, then we find a half. So that was a full teaspoon.
And then this is a half of a teaspoon.
This one's a half, so do the same thing. Yep, perfect. 1 teaspoon salt. So get the 1 teaspoon back out. That's good. Spread that around in there. And then, okay.
And I'm short. Now just put all the ingredients.
Some vanilla. Cream cheese icing, we're doing 8 ounces of cream cheese. That is half a cup of butter, which is about 1 stick of butter, 1 teaspoon vanilla extract, 1/4 teaspoon salt, and we're gonna do 4 cups of powdered sugar. And that is gonna go on our sourdough chocolate cake that's all wrapped up right here. And in the middle of these 2 sheets of cake, I have a strawberry jam. So here's the sourdough cake. We've got the jelly or jam in between. It's got chocolate chips on it. It's gonna be really yummy. We're gonna put this cream cheese frosting on top.
Why did you tape it? Because I didn't want you to open it. Yeah.
Did you get me poppies?
Inside.
What did you even get me? This is so... What is
It's
this?
a necklace.
Thank you. Oh.
Necklace.
A cool arrowhead. Thank you, Hagen.
I didn't
I'll
get
put it on right now.
Any crime? Allergies.
Thanks, Hagen.
Oh, it was such a nice gift.
Your phone.
Here, do you want to?
Yeah,
It's like lightsaber.
No. Only Riker gets lice.
I think it's double. It's a double lightsaber. You can.
I think it is.
You guys can just throw all that on the floor if you want.
No, if it's only two.
Where'd your hair go?
Yeah, it pops out.
Into the barber shop.
I know how to open this, but I'll open it after. Okay, ready? Another lightsaber set. Thank you.
It's 4 lightsabers for your siblings.
Yes.
So now you guys can all.
I want the purple one.
Yeah,
I
they
go
all
purple.
lightsabers.
Now everybody can battle together.
I don't
Watercolors.
Oh.
Hulk.
That's to go
Thank
along.
you. Whoever got this for me, thank you so much.
This one's heavy. I know that one is.
Oh, probably it's a brick.
Weird, I can't remember.
Yes. I knew.
We got it.
No, you didn't. Somebody gave away the surprise.
Ha 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 ha. Oh my god.
I'm just making it.
Here you go. Here's the heavy one. I know what that is.
Oh, this is a brick. This is a brick. I know that.
Definitely got you a brick.
Ooh.
It's a bug.
Yes.
What is it? Let me see.
And they found dragons.
Oh, it's the series.
Yeah, you got a trilogy.
Hi, Bubba.
Last one right here. The big Lego
Yeah.
set. I'll get the knife.
No, not a knife.
Just grab some scissors.
That's not a Noi. What is that?
I have no idea.
Oh, that is a Lego set.
It's a big, heavy, big.
I love this.
What's it say, Riker? Do you know what you're doing?
Another box.
It's a box inside of a box?
Inside
Yeah,
of a box.
inside of a
Hopefully it's a
box.
box.
Yeah, I hope it's a box too.
Look at
Watch out, Bodie.
Hold on, watch out.
I know what it is.
It's a Lego set. Shh, shh, shh. Bro,
It's a
you got a
Tony
Tony Hawk.
Hawk. Yes, it's the one I wanted. Yes. Thank you so much.
All right, today is Riker's birthday, and they've had all kinds of stuff. But Mom is sticking to my diet. I've got 4 eggs and a whole bunch of bok choy cooked up. That's my breakfast.
Birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Riker. Happy birthday to you. 21. All right, make a wish. What do you wish for? Close your eyes. Don't tell us. All right. Give her a rip. What, is Bodie trying? He can't do it. All right, yeah, do it, baby. Nice. You've been practicing.